So as you know, we have the topic of symmetry, and I think you guys read in the little write-up that we are married entrepreneurs, and we haven't killed each other yet. We're here with you. We want to talk about how we try to live a life of symmetry, how we think actually that works out for us, and maybe how that could probably work out for you guys in your partnerships, not just necessarily your love partnerships, but your work partnerships.
So opposites attract. But no one said it was without friction, right? Nobody said it would be easy. Nobody said it would be this hard either sometimes. So here's Katie, and I want to say too, today I'm dubbing Katie Krawczyk Day because not only are we here, but she's also the Buffalo Boss Babe today, so maybe check that out, the blog later, a little shout out. She's gonna kill me for saying this later. So Katie is outgoing, fun-loving. Her background is in public policy, as she just talked about. Communications and PR professional. Type A personality for sure. She's very organized. She believes in staying the course, risk averse. She's a realist. And as you can see here, she's known for grabbing the mic at weddings.
That was a fun night. And then we have Dan. He's your all-around nice guy. He has spent time in our Air Force. He's a full-stack developer. He's a serial entrepreneur, type B personality, creative, hates organization, loves chaos, thrives in it actually. He's a dreamer, laughs in the face of risk. He loves hockey, all kinds, ice, floor, bubble, you name it. And as you can see here, he loves dressing as a chicken.
What brought us together? So actually it was a great event. You can see it pictured here back in 2010, Social Media Day. It's a shared love of the internet. Like we first met and here we are talking about the phone. Our passion and sense of community, we love this area, like I know all of us do here as well. Our drive for greater, we're just constantly trying to improve and achieve the best that we can. And I took French, but I don't know if I'm going to say this right, the joie de vivre. Joie de vivre. So a joy of life, right? So we want to get the most we can out of life.
But in like a lot of relationships, there's a push-pull. So for us, where does the push-pull exist? So we set it up, right? You see the profiles of each of us. But in our relationship, the planning and the preparation, I plan, I prepare, Dan does not. He's a fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy. Communication, I communicate, Dan does not.
All right. I get one here. So.
We have different communication styles. It goes back to the planning and preparation. Risk-taking, Dan takes risks, I do not. I don't like it at all, it gives me major anxiety, and he's often the one pulling me against my resistance. Work style, so I need to go heads down, I need to concentrate, I need silence. Dan is blasting heavy metal, full volume.
Heavy metal, but
when he's
music.
Trying to code something, we couldn't get more night and day if we tried with how we approach our work and what puts us in the space to actually be creative and productive. Our approach. My approach to things is, as the profile sort of stated, more measured, a little bit of thoughtfulness. Not that Dan's not thoughtful, but it takes me time to get there. And I really have to think through something in order to process it and come forward with what I feel is my best foot. Dan is shoot from the hip, but he lives inspired by that. He's an ideas guy. He's always thinking big, he's thinking loud, he's thinking out loud to whoever will listen. So I'm sure if you want to talk to him after, he'll tell you a bunch of ideas that he's got. And that approach often leads to a lot of tension between us. And really, where does the push-pull exist? Pretty much everywhere else. We're totally two different personality types. And that's not unusual to us. But it causes a lot of moments where we really have to either walk away or we have to come together. So with that, there's opportunity and tension, because what we just talked about can cause a lot of tension. You have to find the opportunity within it. I want to give you a snapshot in time. This is dated April 1st, 2015, almost exactly 4 years ago. This was a moment. We are at the current 19 Ideas space. We had just moved in. We had been there for 3 months. And we had gotten at the time we were, how old were we? 4 years old, not quite 4 years old in business.
Oh, that was
No. The business was 4 years old. We just received some not great news. We run an agency, and this happens in agencies all the time. We were potentially losing a really big client. And all the things that come with that, right? We have people on payroll. We have a new space that is now 3 times the cost of what we were paying in the previous space. And not to mention, we're in business together and we're a couple. So if this ship goes down, we're both going down with it. This is the kind of stuff that my nightmares are literally made of, and maybe where he thrives, frankly. So this is a picture of a desperate, now, well, let me back up. This is on Instagram, right? You can see it's carefully curated to give the sense of we are planning, brainstorming, having a great time with some coffee. We got the branding in there. And you can see we got late night, working with purpose, midnight oil. We got our staff telling us to go home, get some sleep. We got some likes. Well, in reality, if you look closer, you have a person in full panic mode, desperate, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And you've got a partner who is calm, staying the course, staying collected, and being the rock that that person really needs. Now I'll let you decide who is who in that photo. It's me. I'm panicking, okay? But the thing is, what came out of this moment? So after the panic settled in, and Dan said, let's plan. We gotta just stop, take a deep breath. Let's think about what our next course of action is. This is what we're writing on the whiteboard, is what were we literally gonna do. It helped give us focus, give us resolve, and it motivated us. And really in those couple of moments, let's say it was an hour or two when we did this exercise, it shifted. The energy shifted. Our perspective shifted. My perspective shifted. Maybe Dan was already calm, but it helped me. And I'll tell you what, we moved forward after that day confidently, and we survived, and we moved on from that moment. What was something that otherwise I thought could have sank us.
So I think what this shows too is how we leverage each other's strengths. And I'll say this too, in that push-pull, it changes. So as she mentioned, like I might have planned there, or normally I don't. And there's times when I do panic, and that's when Katie's there for me too. What Katie brings to the table most of the time, focus, clarity, slows things down, measured, organized planning. You see a theme there, right? What I bring to the table, ideas, innovation, momentum, possibilities, forward movement, quickness. I move a lot of times too fast. And again, that's a lot where Katie balances me out there. I think that's what we talk a lot about here is balance.
Exactly. So there's opportunity and tension. First, I think the first and obvious thing is, it's really easy to see the differences in your partner or a close work colleague or a friend or a family member, whoever. Easy to see those differences as a negative or a hindrance to what you are trying to accomplish or achieve. And it's really about shifting your focus, just like in that picture. You have to shift it, instead of a negative, it has to be a positive. You have to see those differences as assets that you don't have. It's essentially filling, if you think about it as a pie, you're filling in more of that pie. You're getting a more complete picture with that person bringing things to the table that you wouldn't otherwise have. You call upon each other when those assets are needed, and you have to lean into it, right? I think depending on your personality type, I'm a very strong personality. I'm very much, I can do it myself, I don't need help. You gotta let that down, and you have to understand the moments when you are vulnerable. You need to be vulnerable, you need to let somebody in, you need to help yourself, because your end product is gonna be that much better. And then you have to honor it. So you don't just accept it or acknowledge that it's a positive thing. You have to honor it and you have to celebrate it. And you have to understand that those differences can really work to your advantage. And for us, we practice mindfulness and meditation, and it really comes down to gratitude. The gratitude leads to greater clarity, which helps open up your heart. And ultimately, what I have found is that leads to more opportunities. Or if you come in with a clear head and an open heart, the opportunities that maybe were there all along, you might have ignored it otherwise, but now you can see them. And really what we're doing here by doing that is we make each other and then our outcome or our final product much better, because it represents multiple points of view and it's much better informed, better than if I had done something alone with my singular point of view or Dan from his singular point of view.
I think this is one of the most important slides of the presentation, I think, too, especially with the theme. As you can see, and you might see a heart here, but it's really two different pieces and with a mirror and showing the symmetry. What that's trying to illustrate is that we show each other ourselves and the issues that maybe we need to work on. And I think that when we accept that, it's an easier way to get past that. Like I see each time that I'm facing a challenge as kind of an opportunity, and a lot of times I don't solve it, but I also then practice the gratitude. I think that maybe the two most important words in the English language are thank you, and I think that the more that you say that, especially when things happen, it just changes your perspective on things. And so we try to look at what can we learn from those situations, how can we improve. In our cases, where can we find the common ground that brings us together?
So then we come back to the big picture, and this is where we find ourselves rooted in. So first and foremost, we rally around this animal. She is the love of our lives, and she grounds us, and she is representative of what's important. We love each other, and we love her, and we built a life together. And it doesn't matter how much we argue or how much we might think that our way of doing something is the right way. At the end of the day, what are we going to do? Get divorced because we argued? No, we are committed to each other. We're committed to our family. And she's a great furry reminder of that every day.
What's her name?
Ellie. She's a Labradoodle, HTML Doodle on Instagram. So we come back to our values and what matters most, and it's each other. And ultimately, here's the other thing. We might disagree on how to get there, but we share the common goals and the greater vision for our life together as a couple, but what we want to achieve in business. And that's also something that is so easily forgotten when you're marred in the day-to-day and you're really struggling on how to pull a presentation together for a group of creatives in the morning. You have to remember that it's what are you really working for? Everything is a plot point along the path. Well, what's the end goal? Don't ever lose sight of that. And that, there are a lot of ways to get there. So you have to remember that it's none of it's really wrong. It's just a different way of doing it. All of it in the end is right as long as you get there. And that's really like how we got to the title of this presentation is no one's wrong. That's a provocative thing, and depending on how rooted you might be in the sort of right-wrong game that we play with ourselves and in society. But the thing is, we're all hardwired in different ways. It doesn't make us wrong. Now, there can be sort of certain situations where things are black and white, but when you're talking about approaches, that's subjective, what's the right way and the wrong way. And even if something's quote-unquote wrong, is it really wrong, or is that just a moment to learn something in life that maybe you needed to learn anyway? So when you take the blame or assigning the right-wrong out of the equation, that's really when you open yourself up for true collaboration, creativity, and inspiration. That's where that can start to germinate and take root. You get out of your own way and you start focus on building what you dream of. When you focus on who's right and who's wrong, that's actually the thing that will poison the partnership. And we've learned that firsthand. And that was the moment where we realized we've got to stop hurting each other and focus on the bigger picture. It's not about our differences. It's not about our approaches. It's about what are we going after here? In the end, for us, leaving each other was not an option. And not that I'm trying to paint a picture like that was actually on the table, but we've all been there, when you're in the heat of an argument, and when you're working together so closely day in and day out as Dan and I are, it's easy to really think about how often you might be butting heads and think, wow, this isn't working, and maybe we shouldn't be together, maybe we shouldn't be working together. But it wasn't really about that, because again, we were rooted in the bigger picture. So how do you make it work when you're at complete odds on the day-to-day approach, even when you align with the big picture? For us, we realized if we're not going to leave each other, we're in it. We are in it with each other. We need compromise, respect, and we need to honor one another's perspective. So it comes down then to surrendering. We have to surrender to it. And we have to remind ourselves of that. It's easy to forget. But when you surrender, you ultimately open up yourself to these new possibilities and the new points of view that you'd be missing out if you were working alone. So we know that we're better together than apart, and that becomes our guiding principle.
Thanks.